right, should we get started, gentlemen? Mr. Cobb?
And then Mr. Cohen's over there.
No. All right, good evening, everyone. Just take our seats, we'll get started.
Judith, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, good, thank God.
All right. So I call the City Council Workshop meeting of November 1st to order at 7:35 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please read the statement regarding Open Public Meetings Act.
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Revised notice of this meeting was included in a notice sent to the record and advertised in said newspapers on May 29th, 2022, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. A copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Cobb? Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Here.
Councilwoman Marin? Here. Council President Rosenzweig?
Here.
Also present is Mayor Michael Wiles, City Manager Robert S. Hoffman, City Attorney Bill Bailey, CFO Michael Kaufman, City Engineer Franz Volsi, and City Auditor Gary Vinci.
All right, so we have some special presentations to start off the council meeting. So first, we'll start, sorry, officers, you're second on the list. The resolution honoring Norman Davis, and I'll read this aloud. Whereas Norman, because he's my neighbor, lived 2 houses down from me, and now Roland lives 2 houses down from me. Whereas Norman W. Davis has been active in public life of Englewood for over 50 years and recently celebrated his 95th birthday. And whereas Norman Davis was elected to the council and served as council president from 1978 to 1979 before the new city charter transferred the power of chief executive authority to the newly created position of city manager. While council president, Mr. Davis was co-founder of the Englewood Economic Development Corporation, which played a major role in the strong revival of Englewood's downtown business district over the following years. Mr. Davis served as chair of the EDC from 1980 to 1990. And whereas Norman W. Davis is a prolific and insightful writer and author of many articles and presentations about Englewood's history and leaders, he has specialized in research about Dwight Morrow High School, Englewood's Bloodless Revolution, the Englewood Sesquicentennial, Mayors of Englewood, Englewood in the 21st Century, Flat Rock Brook and Bruce LaSala, Flat Rock Brook Success Story, Shedding Boss Rule, My Suburban Odyssey, Ned Feldman and the Master Plan, 2003. And whereas Norman Davis published a monthly community letter, the Englewood Report from 1995 to 1998, which was revised as an online publication in 2008. Mr. Davis serves as chair as the 1999 chair of the Centennial Committee appointed by Mayor Paul Fader, of blessed memory, to organize events in celebration of Englewood's 100th anniversary as a city. Whereas Norman Waller Davis was born in 1927 and received his early education in Westchester County, New York, and graduated from Harvard University, it might have been Harvard College back then, in 1950. After 2 years in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, he joined the New York affiliate of a London-based financial company and spent his entire business career with them in various aspects of investment portfolio management until his retirement in 1987. Mr. Davis and Ann B. McGraw were married in 1961 and moved to Englewood in 1963, where they raised their 2 sons, Oliver and Roland. Whereas over the decades, Mr. Davis has served as president of the School Board of Education and the 2003 founder of SEEK, founded to search for and support candidates for Englewood Board of Education, as well as president and treasurer of the Englewood Historic Society. Mr. Davis has served as a trustee and officer for the esteemed organizations of Englewood Rotary Club of Englewood and Flat Rock Brook Nature Association. And whereas Mr. Davis is an avid crossword puzzle player, participating in tournaments and constructing puzzles as well as solving them, including the Daily Guardian puzzle. And whereas within all the spheres of his life and work, Norman W. Davis has established a standard of excellence in upholding democracy, maximizing history and support of our city, and fostering community activism while showing leadership to the next generation. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Englewood is honoring Norman W. Davis, commends his leadership and achievement and commitment to Englewood's history and community, and congratulates him on his 95th birthday and extends their sincere best wishes for continued health and success. And thank you to former Council President Charlotte Bennett Schoen for authoring this resolution, or doing most of the work. Okay. As always, not taking all the sharing credit. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I second it. Roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
With great pleasure, yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. So we have a certificate here. Mr. Davis couldn't make it tonight, but we have some representatives from the Historic Society who will accept the plaque in his honor. Photo op, everyone.
You want everybody in the front?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll take the picture of Dr. Nathan's birthday without you.
So this is Council Historic Society President Jane Kendall. I am Secretary of this group. And this is Women's Club President and avid historic member of Natalie Beaumont. Yes. Norman son Roland sends his sincere appreciations. At 95, this is what,
Wait for me.
right. This is what, but we were delivered, and I wish we could invite everybody to the party yesterday. Michael did get to come, and it was supposed to be in his apartment, so it was a hot ticket item. Thank you.
And the day I was elected to the council, Norman was the last person in my house giving me advice how to be councilman 15 years ago.
Microphones,
So
please.
it was a feeling like a huge welcome.
You might not know that the heavy lift that the Historic Society had to raise the money to move the house, which is going to become Englewood House at Eleanor Harvey Park. It was Norman who gave us the matching grant that the money started to roll in and did. So we are deeply appreciative.
And Roland's making a name for himself too. Everyone look up the New York Times article about the direction.
Awesome. And thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next special presentation. Mr. Hoffman, how should we proceed?
Thank you, Council President and Doctor. What I just wanted to do tonight is we have we have officers that were recognized at the county for some good work that they did. So they were recognized there was over 500 people that were there. And I just thought it would be nice if the city gave them some recognition for the good work that they've done on behalf of the whole police department. So that's what I'd like to do, is just, we have some plaques for them, so we can give out the plaques. But there was two incidents in June of 2022 that our officers responded to and, helped make the situation safe. So that's it, Council President.
All right, thank you. So Resolution 269, a resolution recognizing 200 Club of Bergen County Award recipients, police officers Alvarado, DiPetro, G, and Sabo. Do I have a motion?
So move.
I second it. Roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. And let's do Resolution 270, and then we'll go up for photos.
Dr. Rosenzweig, before you do, just,
Yeah,
the record
please.
should reflect that our former Captain Sabo also joins us. We have, in the intergenerational department, our chief's father served. There are many officers whose family members are there. It's a proud moment for the Sabo family as well.
Thank you, thank you. And Resolution 270, a resolution recognizing 200 Club of Bergen County Award recipients, police officers Barrett, Fernandez, Schluter, and Smith. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second it. Roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. All right. Let's
Make sure,
get some exercise.
make sure when you talk, you're talking to the mic, otherwise the
Okay, yeah.
you can't pick up, YouTube won't pick it up.
No, we'll do it this time.
Okay, thank you all. And thank you, officers, for coming tonight. We'll just give a second for the tables to be set up again. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so We have one, before we get started on the rest of the agenda, we have one resolution we'd like to add to the agenda tonight, and that we need unanimous approval from the council to do that. So that was on your desk when you came in. Yeah, so as we do every year, we're going to eliminate the parking meter enforcement during the holiday shopping season to help spur shopping in the downtown district. That has to be an act of the city council. So do I have, can I just have a roll call of whether this is not voting on the issue, this is voting to put it on the agenda.
I need a motion on second first.
Okay, do I have a motion to put it on the agenda?
So moved.
I second that. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cobb?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes, so that'll be, where's that going to be on the agenda?
It'll be after the consent agenda. I'll make it resolution number 282.
I'm sorry, what number?
282. All the others are being used.
Okay, all right. Oh, I see, okay. All right, so now we'll go on to the presentations. So we have Mr. Gary Vinci here. You're on. So the mics, I moved them to the side. Excuse me.
Oh.
Did you want to sit down, or are you okay standing up?
I'm fine, sir.
Okay.
I just want Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the invite to appear before you tonight. I just want to spend a few minutes reviewing last year's audit, the 2021. And before, I just review the recommendations, which historically is what we have done at the council meeting. I thought it was important just to walk through a couple of the financial benefits where the city is today. I went back and looked to see where actually the city was 5 years ago, when we talked about the need to build surplus, maintain sufficient reserves. And just as a comparison, 5 years ago, the city's surplus and reserves were just over $3.3 million. And I know we touched on this during budget development this year, but I thought it was important just to bring it out again today. At the end of '21, your reserves are actually now over $10 million. Your surplus has accumulated over $8 million, and now you have also established reserves for terminal leave, tax appeals, storm recovery. And I think that's very important because for the rating agencies, I think having stability with your financial condition is very, very important for future bond issues. City typically issues debt on an annual basis, and I think it's just for the city council, the mayor, the administration, I just thought it was, very important to remind you to see, where the city is financially, and it's an excellent financial condition. With the recommendations, and I don't know if everybody has the audit, typically that's the last page of the audit. And I'll walk through the findings, recommendations that we had. I know some of the items have already been addressed by the administration and finance. Some will be ongoing overview, oversight, which is standard with audit recommendations. A couple of them deal with procurement, purchasing. The first one actually is just reinforcing the fact that the department heads need to follow more of the purchase order process, the policies that the city has. We saw where departments are buying materials, goods, before they actually are putting a requisition in. And for an adequate encumbrance system to work, the purchase order and the requisition need to be approved first. before the service is rendered. Overtime sheets, we noted that some of the detail for the overtime is just not maintained in the payroll department. We discussed that with Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Kaufman, and I know procedures are being addressed in the corrective action plan where they will be now reviewing the detail as opposed to just a summary by department. The next item with local public contract law, that's a broad topic. With contracts that are in excess of the bid limit, right now that's $44,000. There are certain requirements that you must follow, political disclosure forms from the vendors, state contracts and co-ops. You need to have a resolution before the council to approve their utilization, as well as the documents from the state purchasing website. And just having the documents that quotes were obtained, bids were obtained, needs to be centralized. And I know that the city recently hired the Canning Group, Sean Canning. I know, I've worked with Sean. It's an excellent firm, and I think that's very important for the transition, for the implementation of that recommendation, because that firm has experience in quite a few communities and has done an excellent job in those communities. I think that's a very important move that the city council did make. Police off-duty invoices, we noted that there are balances remaining from 2020 and prior. So the recommendation obviously is to follow up with those vendors so that the city is paid. The fixed asset appraisal report, there were adjustments that we noted the last couple of years that just have not been made into the appraisal report system. So that report needs to be reconciled with the balances that is in the audit. There is a finding regarding payroll reports, tax filings, information that is provided to the government quarterly as well as annually, and we just noticed that there were differences. I know the city has now changed to a outside payroll service provider, which should correct that. I think, though policy procedures are important, though, to make sure that there is a reconciliation in place, whether it's quarterly and especially at the end of the year when the year-end W-2s are filed to the employees. The next recommendation dealt with the year-end valuation of your terminal leave. Terminal leave would be the amount of money that employees can convert their sick and vacation personal time and either be paid upon retirement. And there's a calculation that we are recommending that it be done by person, specifically by their hourly rates, as opposed to a department summary or department average. And that definitely should be done on an annual basis. The Uniform Construction Code, there is a report that is filed annually with the state. It's a new requirement, came out 2 or 3 years ago. Our recommendation is that the report, though, needs to be reconciled with the budget report that Finance has. We noticed that there were differences between the two. And the last item actually dealt with budget transfers. City Council can approve transfers November, December, as well as January through March, and we just noticed that there were resolutions that were approved, but the transfer adjustments just were not made in the budget accounting system. So our recommendation obviously is upon action of the governing body that the transfers be noted in the internal accounting records. Those are all the recommendations. If there's any questions from the council, be happy to entertain. Yes, Mr. Hagan.
Please.
Mr. Vinci, I see that we have 4 repeat recommendations from last year. To your knowledge, are any of those, I know you gave reference to last year's audit, but are any of those repeat from 2 years ago?
I think item number 1, which is the purchase order be issued upon the need of the service, and I believe item number 3, which deals with the local public contract law, I think those are 2 years prior to the 21 ordinance.
Understood. What can we do to get that? What, you know, these clearly are problems, but what is it that we can do to, you know, put some guardrails in place so that, you know, our professionals, you know, don't have this issue on an ongoing basis?
I think, I know last year, Finance Department issued a purchasing manual. Whether that was done, I think maybe at the end of calendar year 20, I think it was issued. I think having that manual reinforced, as well as now, I think the action that the council took to hire the canning group should reinforce the statutory requirements that every department has to follow. I think it's just continue oversight to make sure that all department heads are adhering to your purchasing manual, to all the regulations that are required. And centralizing some of the documents, I think, would be very beneficial, especially contracts, bids, quotes, as opposed to having each department maintain that level of detail. Obviously, the corrective action plan is addressing the findings and the procedure that will be implemented this year, but just making sure that it's not just being reviewed now for the next 2 months, as opposed to making sure that in 2023 those same oversight practices are adhered to.
So if we have a corrective action plan and, you know, we're not paying attention to it or following it, you know, the likelihood is that these items come back again, or others.
Well, the corrective action plan is on the agenda tonight. Michael prepared that. I did review it, and obviously if what recommendations, what procedures Michael and Mr. Hoffman have suggested are followed, then I think some of these items should be eliminated. My point is that it's something that has to be continually monitored, in 23 and thereafter.
Sure.
So it's creating the discipline that I think has to be reinforced with all the department heads. And the new procedures that you want to implement for, say, overtime. It's just educating your individual departments and following that internally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other yeah, Mr. Cobb?
Mr. Vinci, I'm going to go back to where Councilman Hamer started, and as an auditor myself, these 4 bullets say to me oversight, lack of supervision. I don't have to be political about it, because what I would want and what I think should happen is when you have a finding, not only is there a corrective action plan, it also is a timeline to when this action plan will be implemented. So therefore, you force the department or the individual to meet that. And if they don't, they have to tell you why they need to extend that, whatever the circumstances may be. I don't think that anything should be out there for a year other than IT kind of things where you have to put implementations in. So I will be very honest with you. I think that we should never have repeat or anything like that, because one, then we need to look at the supervision. Because if the supervision is appropriate and it's doing what it's supposed to do, it could raise their hand and say, we can't meet this, we can't do this. And when we get to this point, when you get to the audit, they will self-identify this issue to you before the audit is done, before it gets started. So therefore, you could report in your report, this was self-identified by the management team. So therefore, and they're currently working on a resolution. You don't spend your time in there looking at this again. but also it reports that they've self-identified that, so the reporting is different from your perspective. And then you could say that they're working on it, this is in progress. However, this report doesn't read that way. So I think it's troubling that we have things repeat like this. We shouldn't have that. And I don't think that nothing should be open for a year. And I think that's the oversight. People could disagree, but that won't hold water to when you identify something, you come up with an action plan. You should also know how long it's going to take to fix that or implement that action plan. So I think along with whatever the corrective actions are, they should have a timeline to each one of them. So that way it kind of gives you some assurance. Because if you're issuing an assurance, then we should be coming back to you to make sure that these things are taken care of properly.
Any other questions?
Just one. Mr. Vinci, in light of what Mr. Cobb just said, are there time limits that you could help us establish so that we could get a little bit more rigid about trying to correct the issues that are continually wrong?
I would be happy to do that. I think the corrective action plan has a time frame with the implementation of the corrective action plan. I'm just looking for it to see if I can find it right now, but I do know the corrective action plan, I thought, had a time frame within the resolution that would be before the council.
And odds are that there probably was a timeline last year as well.
I would say you're correct.
Your help would be greatly appreciated in getting realistic timelines so that we can do what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
And Mr. Vinci, going back to that, because if we get audited from some outside entity and we're not holding ourselves or responding, then that creates a whole nother problem for the city of Englewood, which you know.
Yeah, without a doubt, procurement is very, very important for any type of grant, especially now that the city's been a recipient of federal grants like most other communities. So that is a correct statement.
And I also know, and as I read for the current year, and we have the payroll, I believe we had something with that a number of years ago before.
We did have a payroll sighting maybe 2 years ago.
Right.
So that is correct.
And that creates internal rest if you get some employees deductions and tax reporting wrong, because they didn't do anything wrong, right? And it's who you use and how you do that.
Right, and I think if you look at the payroll process, it was done in-house, where now the city has hired an outside service provider, which should have the procedures, controls in place that the quarterly filings will reconcile with the year-end filings. I mean, that's really what most of those service providers can reinforce with their customers. They have those procedures in place.
But keep in mind, even though we hire a third party, we are still ultimately responsible.
Absolutely.
So we hold that. So it's important that whoever our third party vendor is that we know that they're capable. And sometimes you have to pay up. Don't go on the cheap to make sure you get certain things right. Because in the end, you'll spend that money somewhere else to getting it right, as you know.
Right, they are a processing agent. Making sure that they are paying your taxes timely is still a responsibility of the city.
Correct.
So, Mr. Vinci, you start off by saying just how our surplus has changed. What's the cause of the increased surplus?
I think over the last 3 years, the budgets that have been prepared, especially during early COVID, there were budgets prepared for every government entity that the money was just not utilized. Some of the variable costs that you built in were not expended. So 20 surplus obviously increased. And obviously, I think also the fact that there was a conscious effort to control spending and just build up the surplus, where I know we discussed 5 years ago that the $3 million level was obviously too low for a city this size. So there have been increases because of ratables. Your tax collections continue to be excellent. And I think having all those items in the positive has then built up the reserves and the ability for you to generate the surplus.
So, so what is the appropriate percentage of surplus of the budget? So before we were about 4%, now it seems we're, I can't do the math in my head, 13, 14%?
Yeah, that's, when you look at the size of your budget, keep in mind too that surplus is important for a municipality, because regardless of your tax collections, you still have to pay the school, you still have to pay the county their taxes on a quarterly basis. Sometimes the school may be a monthly. So cash flow is very important to have a high level of surplus. What's also important is the ability, you can use your surplus in the following year's budget, you can draw down, but the ability to replenish it is very important. And having a stable plan where if you do draw down, which I think the last few years, the council has earmarked maybe 2.2, 2.3 million. If you can regenerate that, then you'll maintain a level of surplus and yet still provide all the services that you need to provide to the residents, as well as have funds available for emergent matters. Building reserves is also very important with the surplus, whether it's tax appeal reserve. You didn't have one 5 years ago. Storm recovery, you did not have that. And that's important because of what obviously we've experienced the last 2 years, that storm recovery reserve, you could use that for expenses that were attributable to COVID. Those types of reserves are very well received when a rating agency looks at your financial condition also.
But is there a general percentage that the,
I think you're within that percentage right now. I don't think there's a rule of thumb. Like, you put it this way, the state does not have a maximum for a municipality. For a school they do, but not for a government entity.
so what is it for school?
4%.
That's
But
the
they
maximum.
also can have unlimited, they also have the ability to create other reserves too. So they have capital reserves, maintenance reserve,
Okay.
emergency reserve. So in your situation, I don't think the level you're at now is deemed to be excessive.
Okay.
Dr. Rosenzweig?
Yeah, please.
So, some of us have been around the block a few times, and I remember $8 million, our surplus, being the number that we had back in the day in the 2000s, 2004, 2005. What is the optimum number for a city of our magnitude to be in for the rating agencies?
Well, I think where you are now is a positive. I don't think if you even went to 10 million, I don't think there's any criticism of the fact that you're at a $10 million level.
We were very lucky with the COVID funding. It came from the federal government. Reimbursements were being routed through the county. We didn't have to tap into where we would normally have to use the reserve. If we continue to manage our debt, and if we continue to meet the challenges that go on, is it too aggressive to have an $8 to $10 million number, or you would prefer the city remain at that level?
Personally, I would. I'm just looking at with the budget of 70 million. I've heard 3 months of expenses as a benchmark on the high side. So I don't see having 8 to 10 million as being problematic. I think actually it's probably something that would be recommended. I think where the city was 15 years ago was a very healthy situation. Especially when you go into the bond market, I think it's very, very important to maintain and keep the reserves as opposed to having reserves 1 year high, then it goes back down. I think just keeping a stable level of surplus and reserves is a positive.
You conducted an admirable job with the audit. It's actually a piece of art, is what I kidded you before. The concern that I had was there was one point we were coming into the heart of COVID. We were concerned about collections. How are our collections comparatively to other municipalities? Again, have people been paying with regularity?
The answer is yes. Your tax collection rate has always been, the last few years, over 99%. I think the concern when COVID hit was obvious, a concern for every municipality. But I think when you start looking at the value of real estate, a lot of banks say 50% of your residents are probably with mortgages. Those banks felt it was very important to pay those taxes, and we have not seen any municipality that we audit that had problems with tax collections over the last 2-3 years. Especially last year, we saw that most municipalities had increased their tax collection back up to the 99 percentile, which is, obviously that's phenomenal. It's excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Mency?
Just a comment,
All right,
Council President?
yeah,
Just a comment?
please.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. Everything that the auditor has said, there's no issues with, and I just wanted to draw attention to some of the things that the auditor has said. One of the things that has happened is that the audit findings were shared with all of our department heads because they went across department lines. So in early October, there was over 2 days the department heads we had a seminar where we reinforced purchasing procedures, but we also tied the reasons to the audit comments because that needs to be addressed, just as has been set up here on the dais. There was a couple of issues that came up that in September the city wound up self-reporting to the auditors so that they could be addressed immediately and corrected before the end of 2022. But the issues that we have to deal with for the public contracts law and for purchasing are very critical, and I just wanted to thank the City Council for approving the Canning Group to come in and help embed good purchasing procedures and work with our departments to make sure that they understand the needs. But that was something that's critical, and those are, we need to improve and do a better job, and we will in the future. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see you in the spring. All right. Mr. Kaufman, you're going to speak to us about best practices?
Every year, the state requires the municipalities to fill out the best practices. So this year, the 2022 inventory assesses the municipality's compliance with various laws and evaluates the implementation of fiscal and operational best practices. So all municipalities must submit their completed inventory to the division by Thursday, November 10th. So we're reviewing it today, and I submitted it already a few days ago, so we're good with that. There's 42 scored questions, and that's worth 36.5 points. So out of the 36.5 points, we got 33.5 out of 36.5, which is 90 something. So that's pretty good. If you get 24 or more, you get 100% of your final state aid payment. Our final state aid payment is $132,000, so we're way over the limitation. And that's, we handed out if there are any questions.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit more?
If there are any questions, I'm here to answer.
So like a demanding parent, what happened to those 3 points?
One of them was the audit was done after June 30th, was finished after June 30th. It takes time. One is about if we have repeat audit comments, which we just discussed. And the other one was about perk. We have to send in
Basically an extract of the contract. And so we just signed the firefighters' contract, and the extract hasn't been done, so we truthfully answered no.
Okay,
that's it.
all right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hoffman, could you just repeat what you said?
Sure, after every contract has been signed, there's a form that has to be filled out and sent to the state. There's calculations that have to be done, so we have not completed that yet. And so we will complete it and send it to the state, but,
You mentioned something about firefighters?
yes.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
We said that the firefighters' contract was recently adopted, and so we haven't done the calculations yet.
Thank you.
Sure.
So there is a chance we can get all 3 points that we lost this year for next year.
If they're on, they change the questions also sometimes.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions about best practices inventory for Mr. Kaufman? All right, thank you for coming. All right, so we'll move on to ordinances for first reading. If Ms. Lazamas would read the ordinance by title.
Sure. This is ordinance number 22-19. This is a bond ordinance providing the acquisition and purchase of real property for open space and/or municipal purposes by and in the city of Englewood in the county of Bergen, state of New Jersey, appropriating $744,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $708,000 in bonds or notes of the city to finance part of the cost thereof.
All right, so if I have a motion, and then we can discuss it.
So move.
I second. Any questions about this?
Yes, Mr. Hoffman, would you just explain exactly what's going on?
Certainly. This ordinance is being introduced so that the city has funds available if they decide to purchase two pieces of property. Both parcels have been discussed by the city council as potentially being purchased so that they could help alleviate flooding or be used for open space. But before, there's been appraisals that have been done on the property, but before you can approach the property owner and make a bona fide offer, you have to have funds available to do that. So this is the first step in the process. If the city council adopts this ordinance, there will be funds available to go out and discuss the purchase of these two parcels with their owners.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hoffman, does this preclude us from getting grant funding to subsidize some of those purchases?
No, it would not preclude that. So the ordinance could be amended in the future to, so that grant funding would be used to partially fund the purchase of the properties.
Ken?
Yes, please, Councilwoman.
I am very excited about this because those of you that have been to other council meetings know how upset many of our residents are with the flooding that we experienced. And by reclaiming some of this property, treeing it, putting in systems that will help us capture some of the water that flows down into Englewood, we're not only creating parks, green space for all of us to enjoy, and I believe that this is something that'll keep it'll keep growing as time goes by. It's my hope that as long as I'm sitting here, these will not be the only properties that the city will acquire. You know, I would like to see more trees, more parks, and I'm looking forward to the purchase of properties that we can do this to. Okay.
All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hoffman,
Oh,
I have a question. How do you know that this money is enough or to take care of that? Did you do an assessment of these properties?
There had been two appraisals that had been done, one appraisal on each property that had been done. And then after there's funds available, there will be discussions with the property owners, and if there's not an agreement on the price, a second appraisal can be done, and then there's a statute that we would follow to, to make sure we arrive at the fair market value for the property.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to the agenda, which is the resolutions. So this is the time when the public can comment on the agenda items. We're going to have a public comment about anything you want to speak about in a few minutes after that, but now is the time to talk about agenda items, which are resolutions 271 through 278 and resolution 282. So if anyone from the public would like to address the council regarding these 9 resolutions, now's the time. Okay, so seeing no public comment, we'll move on to voting on these tonight. It's not a consent agenda, so we have a lot of votes ahead of us. So Resolution 271, certification of the annual audit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second it. So any discussion on this before we vote? All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes, so the resolution passes. Resolution 272, acceptance of the corrective action plan for the audit report of 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second it. Any discussion before we vote? Okay, so roll, I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think that there was a key there. Mr. Vinci is still here. I think we're going to make sure that these follow-up on these the corrective action dates. I think that once they're correct, every time there's a corrective action that has been completed, it should be somehow reported back to the council that this has been completed, so we don't have anything repeat offenders for the next year. So we got something I see within a month. So for example, it says implementation within a month. So that should be that. Do we have Mr. Hoffman? Are you going to be tracking these and reporting these back to us?
I'm sorry, Councilman, I didn't hear the whole question.
These findings,
Yeah.
which we're voting on, the acceptance of the corrective action plans. If you read them, and we looked at the timelines, what I want is an assurance that we will meet the target, and if we don't, we communicate that it's going to be extended to that fact. So that way, when they do the next audit, hopefully we don't have any repeats, or if we do have repeats, we know the reason why.
Yes, Councilman. What I have is I've diaried basically looking at this every quarter and circling back with the auditor and the CFO, on that, so that we're all looking at the same thing. But yes.
Well then, can we get a quarterly update from you?
Yes.
Can we get a quarterly update?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thanks. All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
I abstain.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes, so that resolution passes. Resolution 273, authorizing the submission of the 2023 Bergen County Community Development Block Grant for Women's Right Information Center, Trauma Amelioration and Career Development Program. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Cobb?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Before I give my vote, I just want to explain what's going on here. There's an application for a community development block grant from the Women's Rights Information Center, and the amount listed is $88,600. That's not money the city is spending. This is an application to the county for community development funds. And every organization in the city is able to make a submission through the council so that these funds can be applied for, and hopefully they're successful. But we entertain these types of resolutions all the way through the end of the year until the cutoff period for acceptance. So just want you to understand what it is that you're hearing. And my vote is yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. So that passes. We move on to Resolution 274, authorizing the cooperative contract for Fovionics Document Solutions for digital records retention and disposal of records for the Englewood Police Department. So do I have a motion?
So move.
Second, Mr. Hoffman, do you want to explain this?
Yes, this is a resolution that will help us to digitize records that we have in the police department. Overall, our goal is to digitize all of the records that the city has. We have a longer-term goal, and our goal is to digitize all of the records the city has. And I should back up and say that the city is paying a significant amount of money to store records off-site in Patterson at a facility that's climate controlled. Our goal is to bring those records back and digitize them so that all of our departments, boards, and commissions have access to that information, because right now we don't have that, have access to it. So that's the long-term goal. This is part of our implementing that. That's making sure we can get rid of some of our paper, our paper files.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Because of the confidential nature of a lot of the records that are in the police department, I read through the letter of agreement, and I didn't notice anything that protected the confidentiality of the information. I mean, it's especially the police department records would be of a confidential nature, and I didn't see anything in the agreement that talked to that.
Okay. There's a couple of things. Some of the information before it's being scanned, it's going to be kept in hard copy, but it has to go through a process, and some of those records that are going to be digitized will have redactions in them because to protect the confidentiality. I know that there's a procedure. I don't know the specifics to that, but that's part of what will happen. So.
Yeah, but it's not in the agreement.
Okay.
It doesn't speak to that. And when they talk about removing staples, obviously, you have a tremendous amount of personal information, that's held in those records. And I wondered why it was it didn't say anything about that.
Okay. I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know if, Chief, do you have any information just on the confidentiality? I know what the procedure is for the redaction, but.
I can speak to that briefly. The company that we use the multiple municipalities. They have certifications from the state police, security clearances. So it's all the security level is the highest level. So there's things like that which are legitimate concerns. But this company is aware of the municipalities that have these types of sensitive issues on an everyday basis. So at the end of the agreement that you guys saw, but the contract that we signed with them, that information is in there.
Okay. I'm just concerned that it wasn't, that they didn't state it, because it is so important. Today, everybody, it's not unusual to include a confidentiality statement, because we don't know, we don't know who is doing who is feeding the machines. We don't know who is seeing all this. I would just like to know. I would like something in writing from this company that protects us from that.
I'm sure we have that. I can provide it to the city manager to get to you by tomorrow, I'm sure.
Okay. Or yes, we can do that, but if you would like to if you would like to amend the resolution so that it just says that the, that there has to be safeguards for the confidentiality of the records, that would be perfectly acceptable.
Yes, I would like the company to take the responsibility for providing, the security of those documents.
Okay.
So, Bill, how can we amend it?
You can move it again with the amendment that was just referenced in terms of ensuring confidentiality and proper safeguards to make sure confidential information is not disseminated. If someone wants to, again, move it with that amendment, a second, and then a vote.
Would we need a unanimous vote tonight in order to do that?
No, because it's
Okay.
already on the agenda. It's just.
Oh,
a-
okay,
yeah.
okay. All right, so will someone move that with the addendum as just described by the city manager and the lawyer and the city attorney?
So move.
I second it. Any further questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. So Resolution 275, Resolution of the City of Englewood, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, authorizing the qualified purchasing agent to receive certain bids in accordance with NJAC 5:34-5.1, e-procurement. Do I have a motion?
So move.
I second it. Mr. Hoffman, do you want to explain this?
Certainly. What this does is this helps, this helps the city with its procurement process. It gives authorization for us to use electronic platforms to go out for proposals and for bids, and it also references the statutes that we're supposed to be following.
And how could it have zero cost?
Excuse me?
The resolution said there's zero cost.
Yes, that means that the vendors that that will be responding, they can't charge the city. They can't charge the city a fee for electronic services.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So in the past, some corporations wanted to charge municipalities a fee for speed for electronic purchasing and, just to eliminate paperwork. So we're not going to do that. The state doesn't allow that.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Mr. Hoffman? All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I said yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes, so that resolution passes. Resolution 276, authorize project amendments for community development block grant funding. Do I have a motion?
So
So,
moved.
second.
Mr. Hoffman, do you want to just explain briefly?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Council President. This resolution will help us preserve a grant that was given to the city by the Community Development Block Grant Group for calendar year 2020. The project that had been previously anticipated is not going to be able to be completed according to the Community Development Block Grant criteria. So they have allowed us to have basically change the grant funding, keep the grant funding, but change it to a different street. So we are recommending that that 2 streets be milled and paved with this grant funding, and it has to be done, again, completed by April 7th of 2023. So that's what this is
Okay.
for.
Roll call?
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes, so that passes.
Councilman, Council
Sure.
President, may I make one more statement? I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our engineer for assisting. The roads that are going to be redone with this grant are Concord Street and Wilbur Street, but this came up rather suddenly, so this was one of those items where we had to drop what we were doing and be very precise, and, this was, this is a good change for the city, so thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 277, a resolution authorizing a settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center of New Jersey. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So, Mr. Hoppin, I have no idea what this is about.
Would you like me to?
No, okay.
Yeah,
That's a joke. We've met about 4 hours over the past 2 weeks. So, Bill, do you want to just give a summary for the public on this?
Sure. What's before the council tonight is a requesting authorization to enter into a settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center of New Jersey. Just by quick background, every municipality had to file what's called a declaratory judgment action with the Superior Court of New Jersey to determine their third round fair share obligation. The fair share meaning their fair share to provide affordable housing. That time period covers from 1999 to 2025, and the reason the Supreme Court did what it did is because the Council on Affordable Housing, while it technically still exists, was not functioning. They were supposed to be issuing regulations, having meetings. They didn't do it. So we, on behalf of the city, as did every other municipality, initiated a declaratory judgment action in Superior Court. We've had extensive negotiations with the Fair Share Housing Center, as well as the court-appointed special master, to come up with a plan that everyone agrees to that demonstrates that the city of Englewood has met its constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing. After many mediation sessions and negotiations, and thank you to the governing body for scheduling special meetings, not only in the last 2 weeks, but we actually had a number of them earlier this year as well. We've came to a position where our planner and special counsel and myself can recommend a housing element plan, which we feel demonstrates that the city of Englewood has in fact met that. Fair Share Housing Center agrees with our position at this point in time. The next step is, if this is approved, the quote settlement agreement is then presented to the Superior Court, who then conducts a fairness hearing, in which case the judge has to determine if she agrees that the city has met its obligation. Assuming that happens, then there are other steps that have to be taken to actually implement it. I'm happy to say that because of the good efforts of the city over many years, there's something called realistic development potential. The city actually already has satisfied that. And there's just a prospective need that the city, through various overlay zoning, will be able to satisfy that. And that is not a firm obligation or commitment. It's just a mechanism that the court requires to demonstrate an opportunity prospectively for more affordable housing in the city.
All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. So that passes. Resolution 278, employee recognition resolution for firefighter Peter Lee. Do I have a motion?
So move.
I second it. Does anyone have, can we have some details about Mr. Lee?
Sure. Firefighter Lee had a family obligation tonight, but this is just, Firefighter Lee is one of the our firefighters that is part of a FEMA response team, so he was activated and deployed down to Florida for Hurricane Ian, and he assisted down there with logistical work and with just helping to make sure that wreckage was cleared and people were able to access their homes and do other things. When FEMA activates one of our firefighters, they take over payment for the firefighter, and they also pay the city. They pay the city an overtime fee because they know that other members have to cover the shifts that firefighter Lee would be on. But we, in the past, the city has had need of assistance from other sources, and this is just part of the city's way of helping others that are in need. And over the next several months, just I'll be bringing to the council's attention some of the good work that other firefighters and officers have done, whether it was during Ida or other things. But I will send to the city council some pictures that were taken with firefighter Lee down in Florida, camping out on one of the spring training baseball fields for the Red Sox, and then being helicoptered to different places to help. That's what this is about. Just it takes a nation to help people at times.
I'm sorry, did we have a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I hope we didn't lose your vote, Michael, on the Red Sox part there.
Huh?
I hope we didn't lose your vote with the Red Sox mentioned there. Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
I have a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
I spoke to Mr. Hoffman about awards, about this award. Nothing against Mr. Lee or anything to that effect. What is troubling to me is that right here in the city of Englewood, we have a number of firefighters that should be recognized for Ida itself. These are homegrown people. So I want to make sure, and I said to him, what about those people, the people who have done the work here already, that they should be recognized as well. Because that lift here was local, and that lift here was tough. And those guys worked many hours. We lost equipment, we lost everything. So what we're not going to do is lose the opportunity to recognize those firefighters as well. Now, Mr. Hoffman said he's gonna bring them to us. We already know who they are, so it shouldn't take long to have those firefighters who have done this work here, because they were at risk and this place was in bad shape. So we need to thank those guys and recommend and recognize those people. So I want to make sure that it doesn't only help to be afar, we gotta recognize those here that are close here.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
I'll vote yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. So we now move to Resolution 282. I'm sorry, I've misplaced. Oh, I got it right here. A resolution authorizing waiver of downtown parking meter fees for the Englewood holiday shopping season 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Marin seconds it. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. So resolutions for discussion, Mr. Hoffman?
All right.
So the firehouse,
Yeah,
firehouse overhead door?
I'm sorry?
The firehouse overhead door?
Oh, okay. Please. What do you have? Council President, for tonight, we received an email late this afternoon that our purchasing procedures are working. There was found to be a defective part of the bid for what was the apparent lowest responsible bidder was defective, so we will not take any action on that tonight. We will come back and ask that that the lowest bid be rejected, and then we will award to the next lowest bidder. But we're going through the process right now.
Okay. And the agreement for Jobs for Blue, that's on?
That's another area where this will help with audit findings in the future. This is a scheduling program, and we use this as an example. There are 3 companies that are out that are currently providing that service. So we will be soliciting proposals from the other 2 as well. But this is something that will help schedule private duty with the police department, and it will help ensure that payments are received in a timely manner. Right now, we are, to be delicate, we have to chase our utilities to receive payment for overtime that some of our police department members have incurred, so that they could provide traffic duty. So this will help that process. It'll be scheduled through the company, through their software app, and also payment. The payment is made through the company. So there's funds that the utilities deposit in their account, and then it's a drawdown. So that's the outline for that.
Is this a national company or a local company?
The Jobs for Blue is based in New Jersey. There's another company out of Connecticut, and then there's a third company that's out of New York. And
Okay.
so we're going to be reaching out to them, but we're going to be following the public contracts law on this.
Okay.
But it's something we'd like to be able to implement starting for January, where we were chasing down the utility companies for a significant amount of money, and we're being successful with that. But it's taken a lot of effort.
Any questions for Mr. Hoffman about this upcoming resolution? All right, and some of the ordinances, the amendment of the Fire Prevention Bureau, required inspections and fees.
I have a question about that. I just took, I was looking for consistency, and what I noticed is that by the way, I think it's a great idea that the amount should be increased. However, it's not, there's no consistency here. In other words, for one family, 1 and 2 family houses, it would go from $35 to $100. But for all of the others are increased by a much lower percentage. So I wondered why there wasn't one percentage and it was applied to all of them.
That's a valid question. Part of it had to do with the amount of inspections or the degree of difficulty of the inspections. But what I will wind up doing is at the back is the current fee and the proposed fee. But I will provide a better breakdown. I'll prepare a memo with the assistance of the fire chief and fire prevention, just to answer those questions for the council.
I would appreciate that, because it occurred to me that some of the more complex buildings have a much lower increase percentage-wise than something like a 1 or 2 family house. And I think that's what the people are going to be looking at. Why is mine increasing ×3 and this one is increasing ×2? So I'd appreciate you taking a look at that.
Sure. We'll do that, and the goal is to break even, to cover the costs of the Fire Prevention Bureau.
I'm sure of it, and as I said, I totally agree with the increase, just I don't think you can rationalize the numbers here.
Okay, and the approval process for on-street handicap parking?
This is something that had come to the city council. There was a request for people to be able to park on the street in front of their house with handicap stickers. And this, I'm drawing a blank on this, but this was to,
If I
Yeah.
yeah.
If I could maybe just wait, I think what it does is it kind of sets forth a process where an individual that has a handicap placard, for example, and may have limited parking available to them, can make an application to the city to have a spot on the street designated as handicapped. And just kind of sets forth the parameters for what the process would be to submit. They'd have to have valid motor vehicle registration, proof of, a disabled person, placard or what have you, and that type of information to help those people out.
Yeah, and this is an ordinance that was from one of our sister municipalities, and part of the discussion we had is, should the placard or the sticker be license plate specific, so that it can't be the placard can't be transferred from one car to the other. So we're, if the members of the governing body have any input, we'd be happy to accept it.
All right, yeah, that makes sense to me to have it specific.
Yeah.
Mr. Hunt,
Yes.
if this is adopted, and I don't see why it shouldn't be, but if it is adopted, what process are you going to use to communicate it out to the public so that, they can take advantage of it when they need it? And, there are clear rules, for them to follow and everyone's aware.
Yeah. That hasn't been completely determined, how it, well, it would be sent out, we would do a nixle alert, we would put it on the website, we would make it known in various electronic forms as well as other methods, but we would also, I'm leaning towards asking that if this is adopted, that there be a, that we don't, maybe we do it January 1st, or we give ourselves a couple of months just to get the information out, but it's, nothing is cast in stone yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and the final ordinance for discussion, the disorderly conduct one, who's going to address that?
I can address
Yeah,
that.
okay.
With respect to this proposed ordinance amendment, it has to do with kind of tightening up disorderly conduct throughout the city, clarifying, for example, I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but if you urinate in public, that's a disorderly person's offense. And disorderly person's offenses, by the way, are not, quote, crimes under the laws of the state of New Jersey. Other states have felonies and misdemeanors. We have disorderly persons and felonies. One of the things that kind of brought this to light from the police department was problems in the South Dean Street parking garage with activities that apparently are going on there, and they're not related to people parking their cars. So there is a paragraph in there which I need to work on a little bit, because there is an issue with loitering. The issue, what I mean with loitering, is that generally the courts have deemed anti-loitering ordinances as unconstitutional. This is going to be much more targeted, not general statement that you can't loiter. However, a parking garage also may be in a different category than just being on a public street. So I need to clean up the language a little bit, but again, it's just really kind of quality of life types things to prevent abusive language or intimidation with the intent to, harm somebody or threaten them, including motor vehicle type things, road rage, things like that, to include them into our disorderly persons ordinance.
Dr. Rosenzweig?
Yes, please.
So, Bill, would abusive language on its own be considered to be disorderly, or does it have to have the elements of an assault or a battery?
Has to have elements of an assault or
So,
battery.
Kids going down and cussing, it doesn't have any effect?
Correct.
It has to be a physical act.
with an intent to intimidate, harass, because there's free speech implications.
And is this disorderly conduct would be a criminal violation or a civil?
It's a disorderly person, so it's not, quote, a criminal offense, but
it's
the
a
municipal
civil-
court would have jurisdiction. It would be a fine, basically.
It would be a
A
fine.
borough ordinance violation, right.
And what about the homelessness and other things there? In other words, obviously, it's a constitutional issue whether or not in the state you have the right to do what they do in New York and move people around. Would a person then, on its own, being homeless and sleeping in our city, be susceptible to that? Is that the language you're gonna look at?
Potentially, yes, yeah.
It would be. And so the remaining overnight would be a physical act in accordance with being unkempt to be disorderly? In other words,
Unkempt, that in and of itself, probably not.
right, no, there are a lot of residents that appreciate that there are people going through tough times, but that it's not a good look for our city, and I just don't want whatever we do to be challenged in the courts.
Correct. That's why we're being careful with the
No, I
language.
understand
To
that. So
accomplish
this-
an important
So this is an
goal.
ordinance that will be coming forward before the end of the year?
We can't straddle the year, so we will try to do that, though.
Thank you.
Fire.
Does the noise, we get a lot of phone calls during the warmer weather about noise, about loud parties, and now, would this come under this ordinance, or?
It could, this deals more within public spaces,
heard-
and we have a noise ordinance, which it's a state mandated form, actually. You can't even deviate from it, that the city adopted a few years ago. So there could be a violation there. The difficulty with that is, and we have certified people in the police department and the health department, I believe, that can calibrate, but sometimes by the time they get the call and get there, the noise is
It's
gone.
it's extremely difficult.
It's hard to enforce, yeah.
But, I'm sorry, but somebody could be leveled with a breach of the noise ordinance and disorderly person, so
Correct.
it could be the vendor who was a DJ, Judith, at the party gets one fine, and then the person who's hosting the party gets another. But these are just a measure of municipal abuses, if you would. They're
Right,
not
right.
misdemeanors or criminal acts.
Correct.
They're just fine-worthy.
Any other questions? Yeah, so you would like to see the wording before it's introduced?
Yeah, because this is a little
Yeah.
tricky.
Okay. So we now move on to bills and claims. Do I have a motion to approve bills and claims?
So moved.
I second it. Any questions about bills and claims from Mr. Kaufman? All right, then, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes. Okay, communications from the governing body and city manager. Mayor Wiles?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to remind our residents that the general election is taking place next Tuesday, with the polls open the usual hours from 6 to 8. They can visit your usual polling place. Every person voting is also now available it is also now, early in-person is also available. Englewood voters can visit any early voting site in the county from 10 to 8 weekdays and Saturday, or 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. The closest site is the Richard Rhoda Center in Teaneck, or the Jack Walter Community Center in Fort Lee. We want to thank the city manager for moving forward on the street scan. It's an odd-looking car with a camera that covered about 80 miles and took photos of every single sign in our city for us to calibrate not only stormwater removal, but snow and icing and repairs that need to be made. This will help identify potholes, cracks, faded lines, or signs. If you have any questions, please call Catherine Melendez at the city manager's office. The finest of the finest Last week, again, we had 17 Englewood police officers inducted into the New Jersey's Police Honors Legion, finest of the finest, recognizing courage, valor, and loyalty during calls for service for the past months. We also know that the quality of our public safety personnel here in Englewood, and this is a well-deserved recognition of superior performance. As Councilman Cobb indicated, this is in the fire department, the police department, every department is to be lauded for what they did when we're facing challenges and also circumstances on regular tours. Please join me in congratulating the honorees and thanking all of our police, fire, EMTs, and other city employees for their service. We had a wonderful stigma-free session this past week at Dwight Morrow High School. Special guest Darryl Strawberry, a retired professional basketball player with a storied career, including three World Series championships with the Mets and the Yankees, talked about his mental health and addiction issues during the different times of his life. Any one of us can experience a personal pitfall. Most importantly, we wanted to make sure how you can rise up and know that there are facilities in our community, in our county. We thank him for joining us. He left us with a very impactful message. We thank him again, and to everyone who worked so hard in the health department to support this community. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to cholesterol and blood pressure education, Englewood Health, our hospital, is offering a free two-part educational program to help residents manage cholesterol and blood pressure. People can participate live or via Zoom, although in-person attendance will be limited to the first 50 souls that sign up, and masks must be worn. The first session will be Thursday, November 3rd, this week at 7 p.m., the second at the same time on Thursday, November 10th. To register, visit englewoodhealth.com/calendar or call 201-894-3940. Finally, we have Veterans Day coming up on November 11th. I urge everybody on the 11th month, the 11th day, on the 11th hour to join us at our monument with the memory of Olga Masciero, whose father was a World War I veteran, Eleanor Harvey, and Norman Davis, and a lot of wonderful historians that still remain with us. It's important for us to honor those who served. Frank Luciano will be there in January, God willing. He will be turning 100 years old. He still drives to the parade on his own, and it's a real treat to get phone calls every few months leading up to Memorial Day and Veterans Day. We had also a significant honor this past Sunday. Retired General Wesley Clark visited us in Englewood to meet with Congressman Josh Geitheimer, our legislative delegation, and other officials and residents. I will exclude my political commentary as this is not an appropriate venue, but he impressed upon us a message of the importance of remaining a steady resistance to the Russian invasion of Ukraine from a humanitarian standpoint and a tactical global viewpoint. As a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, he has seen the regional damage as well as a wider resulting effects of these types of conflicts, such as in Kosovo. The people of Ukraine are suffering. Surrounding areas are crippled with fear that they might be the next target, and ensuing international uncertainty continues to disrupt global markets, impacting trade and elevating prices of energy, food, and other commodities. Unless Putin is stopped in Ukraine, he will not stop in Ukraine, and the impact will be felt around the world as his aggression is allowed to continue. There is no specific action item for us to pursue, but I feel it important for us to have a perspective to share with the broader audience. And I want to thank those in our city who have served, and it's an honored experience not just to have a general in our city limits, but for us to pay tribute to those who have served on this special day. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cobb?
First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. What I'd like to start with, as we weren't having communications at our last meeting, is to honor and give the condolences to the Gabby Nelson, who's an employee of DPW or the City of Englewood, and the passing of his daughter, Larissa Nelson, and to their family. She was 11 years old. This young lady was 11 years old, so I want to give that family my condolences. On Sunday, I want to thank the American Legion Post 58 for hosting General Clark and Congressman Josh Gottenheimer. It was truly a very inspirational but eye-opening event for those who attended. And I think it shined a light on Englewood and the people who have served in Englewood. As many of us who don't know, is we have our own, who recently passed, our own Lieutenant General, William Merrill Brown. So it was a successful event, and I think again the folks from the American Legion for hosting that. One of the things tonight, and I mentioned this to the city manager in the back, and I mentioned it a little bit before, is that we give out awards. And often we should understand why we're giving awards out, not for the sake of just giving them out, and they have a meaning and a purpose to that. I'm not against giving awards, but I also think there's a time and a place for awards. Tonight, we had awards given out, and I voted yes to police officers. They probably deserve them. But we also have a problem in the town right now, and we have an issue that hasn't been resolved. So I believe we need to be sensitive to the timing and when we give out awards and based on it, because it may give the impression that we're thinking otherwise and that we're not sympathetic to some of the things that have recently happened. And I don't want that to be the case, because it allows people to have a platform to write a narrative that may not be or is not true, but it gives them that opportunity. And what I want to do is make sure that that does not take place. I mentioned this to Mr. Hoffman, and he told me to mention it to the council president. They didn't take it off the agenda. I'm a council person just like everybody else is, and I have one vote. But I will not tolerate being disrespected. I will not do that. I represent the people as well. You need to understand that we all work for the people, and people have voted for us in these positions. And there's a time and a place and a way to do everything. So if we choose to do this way, then we create other environments that are not necessary to have. But I will deal with that, because I think the people deserve better. That family deserves better. But we all deserve better. Just because you sit in the top seat don't make you the top person. And I'll tell you that. But what I'm saying is consider the environment and the element that is going on in this community and across this country. So I'm not going to stay on that anymore. I'm going to move on. What I'd like to do, and I see the chief is here tonight, is in light of all the shootings at schools, I would hope this city would make a commitment to put school resources, police resources at the school, so we can protect our young people. In light of that, we should be proactive in that, not reactive. And I want the city to consider that, because I think it's important, that we do that because of what's happened at other high schools across the country. So I think that we need to come up with something with that. So Mr. Hoffman, you and Chief Greeley can put your heads together as a request, and maybe we can come up with something that we can look at, something where we make sure that we have our schools covered for our young people. And I'm not just talking about I'm talking about all the schools in the city of Englewood. Somewhere, however, we could come up with that, so our young people could feel safe and they can do what they need to do to learn in a comfortable and a safe environment. Next, I'd like to talk about the stigma-free Mr. Darryl Strawberry, who came here and visited us. I want to thank the Englewood Health Department. I want to thank Councilman Hamer and the North Alliance. Is that right?
That's just the Municipal Alliance.
Municipal Alliance, excuse me. So I know you would correct me, for bringing Mr. Strawberry in. And for those who did attend, it was a very enlightening conversation. And for those who did not, you missed a tremendous speaker. And he spoke truth in his own experiences. And he also gave us some comments about some things that we wanted to address. Number one, cannabis. He's not a fan, and he didn't think it belongs in our community. And that's his opinion. But I think that it was an opportunity. I think that when we have people come in and people invest their time to bring people to this community, we should make the effort to try to attend if we can attend. It was a really valuable conversation that he left us with. So I thank you for that. And as the mayor said, there's early voting. We vote on Tuesday, and I believe democracy is under siege, not only at the state and the federal level, but at the local level as well. So this is an opportunity for you to decide and to pick and speak your voice and determine what kind of leadership you want to have in this town at the county level, state level. So I think people need to pay more attention, be more involved. People are working hard. It's tougher to live. So you need to make sure that you get your bang for your buck in terms of the representation that you want to have and what you want to get. And I would just ask each and every one of you who've come tonight, and I thank you for coming, is to encourage your neighbors, friends, and others to come to the council meeting. It's an opportunity to learn, but it's also an opportunity to really have a discussion, because I believe you have to participate in your town if you want to really make it better. And for all of us to move forward, we have to be involved, and all of us it takes all of us to participate in it. And one last thing, you'll see we have a number of homeless people in this town. If you go by Depot Square Park, 7 o'clock in the morning, you'll see people making up their beds and things of that nature. You know, we have to be sensitive to that. I think you have to report it, and we have to deal with it, because they're a part of this community, whether you agree with it or not. And you know, if just because somebody fell down on their luck, you know, many of us are one step away from that. So just respect that, and if you have to report that to Mr. Hoffman's office, and he'll direct the right resources and the right people to try to address that in a respectful and a dignified way for these people. Thank you for coming out. Good night.
Mr. Cohen?
I thought we were going in order. I guess not. Sorry, Judy. I'll be very short, considering we've had a lot of long speeches here tonight. You know, very simply, you know, Election Day, as we've heard, but we can't hear enough of, is critical. You know, it defines our leadership, it defines our decisions, it demonstrates to every level of government that we matter, we count, and we need to be paid attention to. So, you know, I'm hoping there are a lot of people watching this meeting virtually, because, you know, I really thank each and every one of you here for turning out. But, you know, we always wish that we have a more robust amount of people here being a part of this democracy, being part of these issues, because the issues that we tackle here, you know, are the people's issues, and we need to hear those voices, and we need to be able to take those voices into account. But that being said, you know, please, you know, everybody vote. Encourage your neighbors to vote. Encourage everybody to vote. It's no matter how you vote, it's critical that you vote. Those numbers get seen and get watched, and can't express enough how important those numbers are. You know, secondly, just quickly, I just want to, you know, echo the mayor in congratulating each of the officers who was honored here tonight. You know, I want to also, I see Tom Greeley, our chief here, and I want to make sure that, you know, I congratulate him because under his leadership, we're seeing all these officers get honored. We're seeing all these things happen, and I think his leadership has really been just incredible for our police department. And you know, listen, I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing our chief back from when we served on the traffic advisory committee together back a dozen years ago, and just understanding the kind of attention that he pays to each and every aspect of what he does. Every day that I see him and the way the department is being run under his stewardship just makes me all the much more secure, proud, and of the conscious decision that we made to put him in this position as chief. So, to him, to the officers, and to the officers who are honored here today, I think it is important that we honor people that deserve being honored. I think it is important that public servants who put their lives on the line and put themselves in danger, are shown that kind of respect, are have their courage and their fortitude and their desire to protect this city thanked when appropriate, when they go above and beyond. We look across the country at what's going on, and obviously there are always going to be individuals that are in different police departments, which are folks that we need to be very mindful of and watch out for and deal with accordingly. But at the same token, we need to congratulate and commend and recognize the incredible officers who are here tonight, who do the right thing every day, and who have really gone above and beyond to deserve these accolades. So, I for one have no issue in congratulating our officers in this public forum. I think it is great for our town to see. I think security and safety are primary issues for the residents of this city, and I think the relationship between our police and between our residents is what's going to help all issues regarding the police-resident relationship. And I think that when folks come here and see that relationship, it's something that helps us move forward. So, Chief, thank you for all that you do. Please continue, leading in the way that you are, and just look forward to your continued success here. And I, for one, believe that believe in your leadership here, and believe that you're exactly what we need for this time. So, that being said, everybody have a great night, and happy Election Day.
Thank you, Councilwoman Marin.
Okay, I would just like to reiterate, I'm sorry. Norman Davis is a very unique fellow. I also had the honor of joining him and his wife and the members of the Historical Commission and Mayor Wiles at this party that was held at his senior residence, where he and his wife are now living. No, words really cannot say enough about the contributions that he's made to this city. He is a very highly qualified financial person and loves this city. And delighted to see, his 95th year. I hope we'll be there for his 96th. So he didn't live in the 3rd Ward, but I've known him and his wife ever since we moved here. I would like also to say that I don't have enough information, but I will be speaking to Council President Rosenzweig about going over the tree ordinance that's part of Englewood's code. This weekend, I got a phone call from one of my neighbors about people that were cutting a tree down in their backyard. They had no permit, they had nothing, and evidently what people seem to like to do is remove trees on the weekend because they can't get a hold of the people in the city that would usually be in charge of that. So I'm just mentioning this. I didn't even know if people are aware of the fact that they're supposed to get a permit to remove a tree. We can't afford to lose all these trees. This is very important for flood control. So I'm mentioning this now. I'll be a broken record and I'll keep mentioning it. We all know that we need these trees. And we brag about being a city of trees, but we turn our backs and people are taking them down because they don't like to rake leaves. I think that's ridiculous. Anyway, I think I said this at our last meeting when we made comments. For the folks on West Hudson Avenue, I want to thank again Bob Hoffman and Franz Volsi for the paving that was done. They did a fantastic job. and the neighbors really appreciate it. Of course, one of my neighbors said, great, now they can even drive faster, down the street. But that's another issue. But anyway, the paving was done, the street is beautiful, and we thank you very much. Please vote.
Thank you, Councilman Hamer.
Good evening, everyone. It is good to see those of you who are still here. Thank you for being here. There are a couple of points. First one is, I just want to clarify something. The visit by Darryl Strawberry to Englewood last Monday was under the Municipal Alliance. The Health Department is not involved in funding or organizing that effort. They were participants. Some of them belong to the Municipal Alliance, and we're grateful for their assistance. Hopefully, we can bring Darryl Strawberry back to Englewood. His message is one that needs to be heard by every young person, middle school, high school, and every adult for that matter. So hopefully, we can work out something between the city and the Board of Ed to bring him back and perhaps do an assembly or a town hall, or maybe both, so that more people can hear what he has to say. He's got a message that rocks you, and it needs to be heard. I also want to mark the passing of a giant in this area. Reverend Dr. Calvin Butts passed away, and his homegoing service will be this Friday at Abyssinian Baptist Church, and there are a great many Englewood residents who attend church there. I'm looking at someone who attends, and my condolences. But Reverend Butts was a giant, and I'm going to put forth a resolution in honor of his magnificent life at our next meeting. It's been mentioned here, and it should get mentioned every time anyone speaks, that November 8th is the election day for the general election. Early voting started. I voted already on Saturday, and as was said, there are 10 different locations that you can go to drop off your mail-in ballots. There are a number of on-site locations you can go to and cast your ballot at an actual machine. And certainly on Tuesday will be election day. So this experiment called democracy is a team sport. We've all got a role to play. So play your position, please, and vote. I just want to remind you again that COVID has not passed. COVID is still here. COVID is still making people sick. COVID is still killing people. Take care of yourselves, please. Take care of your families and your friends, your neighbors, if they don't have any friends. But please do your part. I also want to bring to your attention the reopening of Bergen Pack. Bergen Pack went through some extensive renovations, and they are now under the stewardship of Alex Diaz as the executive director. And please patronize it. It's here. It's a gym. They have some wonderful shows there, and we need to do a good job of making them stay here. And they already do a lot to fit in and touch a lot of different parts of the community. And a lot of it is because people don't know about it, primarily because the word isn't spread well enough. So some of that, Alex has to do a little bit more work on, and he will. He's a fantastic guy, so I'm looking forward to big things out of him and Bergen Pack. So again, please vote. It's important. And thank you very much.
Thank you. So I too would like to congratulate the people we honored tonight, Norman Davis, for all his extensive work in making Englewood a better city. Just dozens of things, some in the forefront, but many of them behind the scenes, always trying to improve the city. Congratulations on his 95th birthday, and a personal thank you for all the help he's given to me over the years. And to the police officers, for going above and beyond the call of duty and for their honor at the 200 Club. And it's good to celebrate, positive things for the community. We've talked about flooding a lot over the past 14 months. And one thing I've been saying consistently is there's not going to be one big act that's going to change the water situation in town. It's going to be the culmination of dozens, if not hundreds, of acts. And we took another one of them tonight in terms of protecting some, the first step in protecting some very flood-prone areas to make sure we mitigate flooding in the future in those areas. Again, it's going to be 100 little steps. So you can have some patience with us. It's taken 60 years to get to this situation. It's not going to take 60 years to get out of it, but it's not going to take 60 seconds either. So we're making progress little by little, and we're going to get there. So another step tonight. Obviously, a lot of people have mentioned voting. Just a reminder, some people's polling station has changed. So that, you can go on the website and enter your address to find out where to vote. But essentially, I believe it's Ivy Lane is now in the 3rd Ward, and parts of the 2nd Ward near Linden are now in the 1st Ward and will vote in the library. But there are online resources in case you're concerned about where to vote. And I encourage anyone who's at risk for symptoms to get their flu shot at the advice of the medical professional because it's predicted to be a worse than usual flu season. We haven't had the flu that much the past couple of years because we were all wearing masks nonstop. So flu in 2020 was pretty minimal, but it's back with a vengeance. So definitely, if it's advised for you, get the flu shot as soon as possible. Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you. I'd like to let the council know, as well as some of our residents, that on this past Saturday, October 29th, 5 members of the Department of Public Works and myself went down to Trenton and we test drove an electric garbage truck. The city has a grant to purchase 2 electric garbage trucks, and we have to make a decision before the end of the year. We actually have to make a decision by the first meeting in December, so that we have adequate times to send in the grant documentation and not lose the grant. But it was good that our staff was able to test drive a truck, and we were able to talk about the pros and cons of it. We're looking to drive one more, a vehicle from another manufacturer, and then come back to the city council with a recommendation. So the purchase for these grants is 100% grant funded. The paving of the county roads is progressing. The county should be done by the end of next week or the beginning of the week after, and the work is being done now so that we will be in position to have the state start in earnest the replacement of the Jones Road Bridge over Route 4. They have started work behind the curb on October 28th. But in the spring, they are anticipating having traffic detours that will come through the city. So this is part of the logistical work of making sure we have our roads paved that are scheduled to be paved and have them ready to accept traffic in the spring. On Friday, October 28th, the city received notification that it had received a community development block grant for calendar year 2022 in the amount of $150,901, and it's to construct handicapped curb ramps and curb cuts in certain areas of the city. So our city engineer will now be putting together his Ouija board and deciding how we can best utilize those funds, but it's nice to be able to receive some additional grant funding. No, it won't be last, the second to last, we've had our library our library parking lot is being used by patrons of other businesses, and the parking for the library has not been adequate for our staff or the patrons of the library. So the police are going to be starting an active enforcement. We have spoken to some of the businesses that are the offenders, but I want everybody to know that the library parking is for library employees and library patrons, not for others when the library is open, and we will take the appropriate steps, including summonses, and if we have to tow some cars to make a point, we will. But I don't want it to get to that level, but we are prepared to do that, so that the library can have the spots that it needs. And then last but not least, I wanted to compliment our rec department and others, particularly Merrill Simmons, our recreation director, for the work that was done on this past Sunday for the Halloween event that happened over at McKay Park. So she did a wonderful job. And then there was a lot of help from the health department, from the DPW, from the fire department, from the police department, from my assistant Catherine, as well as from other volunteers. And it was just nice. It was a wonderful day. It was a sunny day, and it was nice to see hundreds of family members there, as well as other people that just came out to enjoy the day. So I want to thank Merrill, and I just want to say that was a job well done. And that's my report.
Thank you, and thanks for the comments about library parking. Make my home life a lot easier. All right, so we now move on to the public session. So this is the time when we open the meeting to the public, and any member of the public wishing to speak is asked to come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you. Can you come up to the mic a little bit closer? Thanks. Or just even get closer.
Yes, good night to each and every one on the staff. Excuse me, my teeth, I cannot find it. My name is Mrs. Jennifer Minot from 82 William Street, apartment B2 in Englewood, and I lived there for 42 years. All my kids grew up and go to Dwight Morrow High School. Tonight, my concern is about the road, Forest Avenue down there. It is still black and no work going on there. And it is so hard. The big trucks coming through that small street, and I drive there, and it's so hard because they come in and I'm trying to go in, wait, and the big truck, it is very hard around that section. It really needs some work to get done so that section can keep going on, because that section black and the signs are there and everything, but the road is so narrow. And then Lafayette was fixing. Sunday I never go to church. My car couldn't take the road, so I never go to church Sunday. I went to the park. I heard Sunday late in the day, and I went over there, and I had a good time. It was great. The only thing with the park, there was no water, there was no juice. That's all. But everything was great. Anyway, as I hear Mr. William Bailey was talking, he was talking about housing. I don't know which criteria or which way who is responsible for this section, but I'm asking this question now. Is there any help we can all get in Englewood with low-income housing? Where I live right now, I would like to move, and it is hard. Everything is hard now. Worst, and I really would like to move from where I'm living right now because of different circumstances, and I don't hear about no low-income house making in Englewood. The last time when I heard...
Okay, if you could just sum up, please. If you could just sum up, please. Thanks.
Pardon me?
The time's up. If you could just sum up, please.
The last time when I heard and I went to the Route 4, they said there was nothing. And I would really like to see if the city is going to make any low-income house for us, the middle class or whatever they call us or style us, you know. I would love to get to hear something, what's going on. And where I live, there is no handicap parking, and it's private property. Is the city can enforce that so that people can put handicap parking where we live, because it's so hard. Everything is complicated and hard, and everything, there is no action. Everybody is just, it's sweep underneath the rug. I don't know what to say anymore.
All right, thank you. So we're going to let everyone speak, and then we'll answer the concerns.
Can I get some answers?
We're going to answer after everyone's spoken. We'll go around and answer some of the concerns.
Mrs. Diaz. I live at 408 Shannon Court, Englewood. Councilwoman Marion spoke about the paving on West Hudson. They did a great job on West Hudson, okay? But I have a hole in front of my house, Shannon Court. It hasn't been paved in I don't know how long. I've been there for 27 years. That's one concern. The other concern is West Hudson and Tenafly Road is a very bad street. There's accidents there all the time. Is there a possibility we can get a camera? Because people go through that light like it's nothing. They never stop, and it's really bad. The other thing is when the paving was done, you enlarge the drainage, and the contractor dug up in front of the house on the corner, and the cement and everything is still there. So they did a good job on the streets, but they dug up when they put this the enlarged drainage system, and they left it. So that needs to be corrected.
Okay. Don't be shy.
My name is Alvin Trustee, 33 Florence Street. I have a few issues that I would like to talk about. Well, first of all, this Sunday at about 7 o'clock in the morning, so right there on Dean, so cars come down there at excessive rate of speed, flipped over, SUV, talk about 3 cars that were parked there. So I think, we need a camera to slow things down around there. It's just out of control. And it's just,
I'm sorry, which street did you say?
excuse me, it's
What-
on Dean, I live on Florence Street.
Yeah.
So
Dean.
Florence and Dean come together. So right there. So as soon as they pass Forest, they're at a high rate of speed. If that light, if it's red, it's green, when they come through there, they have to be doing 70 plus miles an hour. This lady flipped the car over, hit 2 parked cars and flipped it over at 7, I would say about 7 a.m. On Sunday morning. So this, something has to be done there, like some sort of camera, slow them down, put up a flash sign or what it is. That's 35 miles an hour. They do well over that speed limit there. So I'm just concerned because, kids come, the buses come, pick up kids during the day, that they don't care. They pass right by the flashing red lights on the school buses. And it's very dangerous. I'm afraid something's going to happen. The second thing, on Florence Street, my block has been ravaged by flooding. That's the first thing. That block is just bad. You have a little bit of rain, maybe an inch and a half of rain. The whole thing is flooded. Fire departments come down here. It's always been a problem. And the sweepers do not come down there. I would like to try to get alternate side of the street parking over there, so at least the street would be clean, and that's really a problem over there. And because of the flooding, you said, I heard you talking about milling. Because of the flooding, there's potholes all on my street. So, and we've been separated for 6 months now because the railroad track's been closed. So I feel like we've been just forgotten about in the form of water. And I talked to Councilman Hamer also about it. We were talking and try to get the city sweeper to at least come down, because people come from Forest Park Gardens, and they park on Mary Street and on my blocks. There's no parking.
Yeah, okay.
So in order to get them moved, I think we should put up some signs, we sweep twice a week, let them move for an hour, we can sweep it out there. So I would like to see that, if we can. I know we have budgets, but
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to see something done. Thank you.
All right, so I'll close the public session at this time. Just to go over some of the issues. Mr. Hoffman, just on Forest Avenue, what's still closed there?
The bridge is still closed on Forest Avenue, so
Yeah.
the county was just awarded a grant of $600,000 to replace the bridge, but we don't have a timeline for when that will occur. I've contacted the county administrator just to ask for a timeline for that, and so we will be following up with that. But I am pleased to say that after 24 weeks, and thanks to the decision of the governing body or the city council, we were able to open up the Forest Avenue heading east and west over the railroad tracks. So at least we were able to alleviate part of the traffic issues down there.
Okay, Mr. Bailey, we talked about affordable housing tonight. So, what would be the take-home message, for a resident about, what we passed tonight?
So the city itself doesn't necessarily have the affordable housing on city property. As certain developments are approved, some of them are required to set aside a certain percentage of affordable units. I don't know offhand who the person is, but the city may have a affordable housing liaison that helps coordinate in terms of where there may be affordable housing available throughout the city. And then there's state mandated income limits and things like that that are really under the auspices of the state. But I don't know offhand, again, who the COA liaison is or who at City Hall to talk to about to see what's available out there in terms of private property.
Okay.
The other question about handicap parking spaces, generally the city can't impose it on private property. However, if it is a condition of an approval that they may have gotten from the planning board, for example, they may require it, but generally speaking, the city can't mandate handicap parking on private property.
Okay. Chief Greeley, I think you heard some of the concerns tonight about high traffic areas, speeding along Florence, maybe some cameras there, enforcement, and the light at Hudson and Tenafly, which I know you're well aware of.
Ken?
Yes?
I think it's Ms. Minot. I don't know if you've tried, but there are social workers at the Women's Information Center that you might want to speak to, because I know they have helped people, that need lower cost apartments. So I'm just suggesting to you that you call them. They're lovely, and they really know what they're doing. So give them a try. The Women's Information Center, you probably know, the building that's on Palisade Avenue.
Thanks. And the final thing, Mr. Hoffman, just if we could ask DPW to take a look at Florence Street to see what the results of the paving and the pothole there.
Yep.
All right, so thank you all for coming tonight. The council's going to go into closed session at this time. We are coming out of closed session to vote on a resolution, but it's just a single resolution we'll be voting on. Mr. Bailey, if you'll read the verbiage.
Sure. Be it resolved by the governing body of the City of Englewood that it meet in closed session to discuss the following subject matters: appointments, potential litigation, contract negotiations, and matters within the attorney-client privilege. And be it further resolved that the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public upon taking final action thereon, provided it does not violate the attorney-client privilege or constitute an undue invasion of privacy. And be it further resolved that the council, as noted by the council president, will return to open session after the closed session meeting to act on resolution 281.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, roll call, please.
Councilman Kopp?
Yes.
Yep.
Councilman Cohen? Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Maren?
Yes.
Council President Rosenzweig?
Yes.